Welcome to Powered by People, the business podcast from Three Hills that explores how people strategies transform organisations. In each episode, we meet an inspirational business leader accountable for their business's readiness to win in tomorrow's world. I'm your host, Tim Pointer, a Chief People Officer and an operating partner at Three Hills, where we work to advance organisational performance across our portfolio of outstanding businesses. Joining me today is Ceri Gott. For over 13 years, the Chief People, Culture and Growth Officer for restaurant chain Hawksmoor, whilst they grew turnover from 10 million to 100 million, building to 13 locations, taking their business international, and for those 13 years, ranking on the best companies list, and the first UK restaurant to be awarded B Corp status. Previously, she was a government economist across the Treasury, Department of Work and Pensions, Home Office and Cabinet Office. Today she works as an ICF accredited culture and leadership coach. She believes, quoting Nancy Klein, the quality of everything we do depends on the quality of the thinking we do first. Let's go hear from Ceri. Welcome to the Powered by People podcast.
Thank you, Tim.
Now that quote, I love that. The quality of everything we do depends on the quality of the thinking we do first. Why does that resonate for you?
For a number of reasons. So, as a coach, I work with leaders who recognise that growth is an inside-out job, whether that's growing themselves, developing their own leadership capability, developing their team, which I'll bring back to thinking because that's a group thinking and the quality of that group's thinking, or whether it's growing their business and creating that environment for people to really connect with what matters, explore it more deeply, to energize their leadership, energize their decisions, and lead with more intention and impact.
Yeah.
Can just transform not only what we can achieve ourselves, right, in our lives. That's quite a big deal.
Yes.
We may as well enjoy our lives. But certainly what we achieve with people, because everything we achieve with others, can help us achieve more, but also just bring more, I find, more ease, more comfort and more joy to what we do, which in turn helps us to create more of that, which creates more success.
So your career history is fascinating because you've gone from the macro, the government economist piece for 13 years, then into a highly entrepreneurial, fast growth business for the past 13 years, and now again into working with leaders and teams in terms of coaching them to their performance. Have there been pivot points that have taken you from one to the other, so from one place to the other?
Yes, I spent 13 years in government working on social and economic policy, had an established job, a great job. And two things came together at the same time, and they're both about pivoting and changing. So my brother, Ceri Gott, who'd set up this just really special restaurant business with his best friend and business partner, Will Beckett, they'd recently taken over an old kebab shop opposite a church in Shoreditch, designed by the architect Nicholas Hawksmoor, and had opened a restaurant called Hawksmoor, just with simple ambition, like simple, great quality ingredients, real integrity in supply, and a lovely environment for everyone, guests, customers and the team to kind of relax, feel comfortable and enjoy themselves in. You know, a really lovely thing, and then ambitious because they did want it to be the best in London and then one day the best in the world.
And a lot of people listening to this will have a mix of boiling point, there, and every sort of behind the scenes show where Gordon Ramsay has gone in and turned around some diner in the Midwest going through their mind. When you stepped into the business, what stage was it at? What point had the culture evolved to?
So that is the conception of what hospitality can be like.
Mm.
And this is, 13 years ago, 15 or something, when they set up. And they wanted to create something really different. So when I turned up, my brother Hugh described the culture as a group of talented people creating something special. I mean, it's just how he talks. It's not And they really knew that was special, and that what you achieve, they had other businesses before that had not been successful in the same way, which is that lovely story of trying things, failing and moving on and learning. But everything you achieve through people. And I really believed if we continue to get the people bit right, the rest will fall into place. Customers will come, they'll have a great time, they'll tell their friends, they'll come back, and the profit will follow. And, one, it was really important to them to keep the culture and keep that bit right for people. And two, it was really important for them to keep what made it special, which is also that customer experience, the quality and the ethics. Changing my life started with a phone call from my brother saying, do you want to come and help us do that? And I was going through change as well because, I had this established career, really nice and secure and stable, probably your parents' dream. And I had an experience that just changed everything. So my son, who was 3 at the time, was just very ill. And it's one of those experiences where you're walking down the street and you turn a corner and you feel like you walk into a wall. You just don't expect it. And then, I don't know if you've had these experiences, but they come along. So he was recovering from that. And it just made me really reconnect to what is really important to me. And what is really important to me now, and it's my family, and I want to work with someone I really care about and I feel really comfortable with, actually. And in an environment, it was fun and it was all the things that it said. Be comfortable being yourself. There were lots of waiters with tattoos and piercings, which was unusual in those days, wearing their own clothes. And that's part of being comfortable being yourself. It's the more superficial part. But it was deeper, I found. I was not like that. I was the only working parent or mum when I was there, when I joined, not now. And that felt fine. It felt fine doing that. And the ops director, it's now the CEO, I would say, yeah, sure, go to whatever it is, Christmas show, and I'll cover this meeting. It was that sort of environment. So it made me really reconnect to that, and I decided to join them. I thought I might start 6 months. Start and stay 6 months. And I ended up being there 13 years. And I think because, those red threads running through, like I really care about people. When I join those dots and I can see it, often the biggest impact we have are on the people who work with us. Managers have such a big impact on people's lives. It's not just their job, it's everything. And then actually always being really excited by growth and by innovation. I had worked on productivity and innovation, so with different companies and sectors. And for me, that's really exciting. Change and evolution is really exciting. And alongside that, creating jobs that really meaningful and experiences and cultures that are really meaningful for people was such a privilege. And increasingly, I like supporting other people to do that.
In that role, when you were working in government, I'm sure there were many times when you went and visited different businesses, domestically or internationally, and you understand what the nature of their business is, the timelines, challenges, etc., etc. When you went into Hawksmoor, how do you sieve that down to what am I going to do in this moment?
If I think about innovation and productivity and growth, I was really lucky. I got to go to I went to Harvard, I went to China, I went to India during that big phase of globalization, and I got that insight into the theory. I got that insight talking to people in business and consultancies and academia, and I'm well versed in what the drivers are. It's totally different when you go into a business. So, macroeconomic research, we have drivers of productivity of physical capital, human capital, innovation. So it could be your science and R&D, competition in the market. But then what is the thing that connects all of those things and creates value from them? It's management, it's leadership. So at the time, some of the theories about why has the UK got this productivity gap were around management skills and leadership skills. And then you come into a small business, or now I coach business leaders. A lot of people have this experience, which is, I know all of this stuff. I've got my business idea. I know all about tech. I know all about restaurants or food. And suddenly they start and they're like, oh, wow, it's all about people. It's all about people. Someone said to me yesterday, I wish 30 years ago someone had told me that hospitality is 10% about food and 90% about people. It would save me so much time. I think we are getting more evidence of things that people know intuitively.
Yeah.
And actually it's the intuition behind people management. So when I moved from working at a really big scale and with big data sets, all of that stuff, and moving into a company, I put data behind me. So I know, like, one of the things we'll talk about certainly as business or, get bigger and scale is the importance of data-driven decisions and knowing what you're doing. But I know this inside out. Like, it is part of how I operate. And what I need to do is put all of that behind me and see people as people. And there are 150 people in the business at the time, and you can do that, right? How do you really listen and capture people's ideas? Because that's where the creativity is. That's where the insight is. And you do that by, how much have I learned from senior sous chefs? Like, so much. And if you can get them to trust you as the HR director and as the founder assistant, whatever it is, as someone who's quite different, to actually be honest about what they're thinking, what will help them. And whether it's the senior sous chef or the marketing director or the finance team, whoever it is, if you can create that environment, if you can really listen and bring these ideas out, really exciting things happen, and creativity and growth, and you can do things differently. You can also adapt and flex when there are issues or problems, which we will both experience over the last 5 years. So it's so much of it is about the environment. For me, that was intuitive. But now I love it. I go to a training by Professor Richard Boyatzis, and he talks about something, and there's neuroscience and decades of research. And it's like, oh, I've been doing that. I just kind of sensed that.
So is there a model that you start from when you're thinking about the organisation and how to build that connectivity between colleagues and purpose?
So I think there's increasing talk about culture. I mean, there certainly is in hospitality post-COVID, in trying to hire people. That sudden understanding of culture is really important. But often it's so nebulous, right? Like, what is it? It's just the way we do things around. It's just habit. And it's really helpful to have a model. So I like Simon Sinek's model, the golden circle model. If you imagine a dartboard and 3 concentric circles, and in the middle, instead of the bullseye, you've got why. So you've got why, next one you've got how, and then circle on the outside, you've got what. And Simon Sinek says that whereas most companies start with what, inspirational companies start with why. And he gives the example of Apple and Dell. So Dell make computers. I'm sure they're great computers. I'm not very techy. I'm sure they're great computers, and they talk about how great the computers are, but the story starts and ends with what. Whereas Apple have that iconic poster of Steve Jobs and 2 words, think different. And no computer in sight. They just started with why. We think different. We challenge the status quo. And the theory is that creates more loyalty. It creates more emotional connection. And it helped Apple grow from 1 million to 1 billion turnover in 5 years. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? So your why is whatever your purpose is, what you're creating or contributing to the world that's more than just making money. Because people don't connect to money. Some people will, but even if you look at leading your workplace culture, most people are not the founders or the people with the equity, right? Like, and even then, certainly at Hawksmoor, there isn't joy in creating something that's just for money. And then your how, it becomes, when you're thinking about culture, how do we work together? How do we interact to make this special thing when we're at our best? And then your what is just how that shows up, which could be your benefits policy or your the way you do training. And for me, it's a great model of culture, but also it explains how not only do you have a great culture. So at Hawksmoor, talked about talented people creating something special. You got a purpose, creating something special. We had values, which are your how, and we can change the what over time. So you have your great culture that creates loyalty, but also it tells you how you can evolve. So it's a model, when Dell launched MP3 players, no one wanted to buy them for Dell because they're a company that define themselves by what? We make computers. Whereas Apple define themselves by why? We challenge the status quo. I think you bought one, looking at your face. So everyone wants to buy one. And the same's true because something that can happen in even companies with the best cultures is they get stuck. Because we're humans, right? We get really attached to how we do things and things that are really special to us, and it's our day-to-day routine and people we work with, all of those things. And that is, for me, that's really dangerous because everything's always changing and you have to adapt.
So that's really helpful to understand the mental framework that you take into a workplace. So taking Hawksmoor as an example, applying that philosophy, it feels like a philosophy to me. How did that then translate into a special environment? What was special? What was unique? What was different? Why would I want to be there rather than next door?
I mean, and that's such an important question when you're trying to hire chefs and things. So when I joined Hawksmoor, what I found were the kernels of culture, right? A group of talented people creating something special. There's a why. There's something that I can understand now about creating something special. And Hugh and Will, co-founders, had realised it was special and realised it was special because of the people and how they interacted. So they had looked at what was there and identified what they saw the values being, the way people interacted when they were at their best, and creating that amazing experience for guests and that amazing team environment that made people want to be there and show up and work harder, and happens to also create great results. So they had 5 values: work hard and be nice to people, support, personality development. And then the challenge for me is like, so how do you embed that? I had the manuals. Yeah. How do you get them into the business? And it was so helpful. It's your map and your compass. And then I just scattered them through everything. So when I started, I was the whole HR team. When I left, I had a team and I was on the board and I had 2 people directors that did something quite different. But I'm just scattering it throughout the whole HR infrastructure, sometimes with a heavy hand. So it's induction. You will hear from the founders about the values and it will make it seem authentic because it is, and that it really matters. And also you'll hear from them what they mean. And sometimes with a light hand throughout 360s, manager review, self-review questions. It's just they're in there, right? So scatter them throughout the HR infrastructure. Culture is not in paper or policies, it is in people. And for me, the most important thing in culture is what conversations are people having. And it's that. So what conversation are we having that builds understanding and connection between us? That creates culture. Every manager, when they joined, about nurturing a culture of kindness. Not this is what you do, but you make a really big difference to people's lives. It's people in their 20s often, and management is difficult. And just creating that space to really kind of, again, connect to what really matters and the value. And then you have to scale. You have to change your solutions as you scale, right?
So what do I experience in a culture of kindness?
I would think about big and small kindnesses. So big kindnesses are the sort of things that I think, wow, we're really kind. The finance team pay all of this money so that people in Hawksmoor, in hospitality, have income protection insurance, which would be common in some of the companies you work with, but very uncommon, really uncommon in hospitality.
In hospitality, that's really rare.
It's really rare. So we were the only company. I had to find this special insurance that kicked in after 6 weeks, because most of them kick in longer because they're designed for a different sector. That does not attract 20-year-old bartenders into your company or the death benefit. But when something happens, which it does, it is amazing to be able to give that support. It's an amazing peace of mind, and it takes a massive stress off people when something difficult happens. The head chefs at Hawksmoor had been there like 8 years or something, also unheard of. And when people ask me, because they ask me about culture and how you create it and how you create retention, actually, there's all of this cultural stuff and the values, but I thought of every single one of them at the time, and I knew something that we had done or I had done when something had happened, which could be your dad's will just fly back to Poland tomorrow. Just don't even think about anything and we will sort it out. And that's kindness. And then there are the small kindnesses that just make the biggest difference to people's lives. So at management induction, really it's an opportunity for people to start connecting to that. What are the things that make a difference to you? Because I don't know. Yeah. But it was, my head chef says hello. When they come into the kitchen in the morning, they say hello to me. It's not the environment you described seeing on TV. For me, it's someone I work with sees them back to back and brings me a cup of tea. And culture is in people and it's in what they do every day. And really, your managers are set your culture and shape your culture.
Can you hire for that? Or do you develop that
I think you do both. So there are lots of different ways of describing the different brain networks and other networks, but say we have just a simple characterization, an analytical network and an empathic network. So our analytic network makes us logical, rational. It's a lot of government economics, right? It's the data crunching bit. I've heard it described as your analytic network is like your CFO, right? But it's your empathic network that's your CEO. So that's the bit that not only understands emotions, your own emotions, that's self-awareness, and can connect with them and decide how to manage them, how to use that, can empathize with you and how you might feel so important, can listen, can make you feel that you belong, can get that idea out. But it's also the network that connects with principles and ethics and things like that, so you can guide something through change. What I learned recently is, I mean, they're two muscles,
Yes.
right? And you have to exercise them. And we are generally trained in Western education in our analytic network, and we're rewarded for it in our careers. But when people start doing this and they say, oh, it's all about people, they suddenly realize it's all this network that they haven't exercised. Actually, if you don't use it, it atrophies and shrinks. So I'd say not only can you develop it, it's really, really, really important to start leaning into it, because at a certain level in your career, you know what you know. That's got you there, right? You're running a company, you're a senior leader. You're really good at that. But success will be all about what you can achieve through yourself and what you can achieve through other people. At work, it's shown to be the biggest indicator.
What you're talking about is creating space and time to have these conversations that connect people, that build a very real awareness from moment to moment as to what's going on with you, and for you to understand what's going on with me. Now, how do you build that time into so that people get used to that change? Because as you say, that's not something that's built into us through the education system, for example. How do you build that into the way that the workplace operates?
I think if you are in a restaurant where what you're doing is creating experiences, emotional connection, so that people come back, it's hospitality.
Mm.
So at Hawksmoor, there was a 5-stage management development program. At one point, it was a 5-year management development program. And it starts with understanding yourself to understand other people. And then you just pepper it into the HR infrastructure. So in the self-review form, I just think those self-review forms are one of the most powerful tools that HR people have, because it's the one conversation, it's one bit of paper I can guarantee that everyone's going to read. And just those real careful choice of those 3 or 4 questions that you put in there, and the tone of that can do a lot of the work.
Is there one of them that you remember as from the format you put in place?
I remember one year really focusing on mental health awareness. We're pumping some stuff out. People can engage with it in different ways. And just adding one question in there, which was, what helps you if you're stressed? And as your manager, is there anything that I can prompt? For me, someone said to me, they were having a difficult time. They said, running helps me. Can you just ask me, have I been for a run? And it's so simple. Do bespoke leadership development courses for founders and senior managers, because I think at that level, it's so important to keep ahead of the organization, and it's difficult. And really, you can learn these models. So I have access to loads of models in my head, right? Like just so many, but it's really, really personal. It is personal. And the growth is when we can really apply it and integrate it to who we are and how we show up, our values, our vision. Actually, it's very similar to the Simon Sinek model, but it's personal.
Listening to the team and understanding any pain points or opportunities for that. How did you create those conversations, and what did it reveal to you?
I really like something I came across recently, which was about psychological safety, the 4 stages of psychological safety. And we often think about it with inclusion and belonging, right? One of the things I love most about Hawksmoor, one of my favourite KPIs, is that 97% of people, it's 3 years in a row, said that Hawksmoor welcomes everyone, irrespective of their background and characteristics. That was the same broken down by gender, it's the same broken down by race, and a similar kind of 90, 95 plus for I feel comfortable being myself and I belong. So that's great, and that's part of the culture, and people in the restaurants and the teams will show up and be more motivated and create that great experience. This also indicated, what they were saying is that a leader's job is to create this safety. This becomes the most sophisticated tool that a leader has. to create in that team of people around them who are doing the strategy. And it is so that you can increase that challenge on ideas, sharing of different perspectives, which really give you breakthroughs. And the insight was your job becomes to increase idea friction. So like I say something and you challenge me, and decrease social friction. I feel fine about that. And the issue is we're humans, and there's a human being attached to that idea, and we tend to be sensitive. And for me, there are all of these ways you can create that environment that give people permission to have a different point of view, say something and change their minds, only see their point of view, not feel they have to see the whole picture, but that's what they're contributing. Say something that they don't necessarily know as much about. And if you can create that in any team of people that has a lot of knowledge, whether it is your senior management team, your management team in a restaurant, whether it's the board, then there's so much potential there for creating something even better. And I suppose it is an idea that I bring from government, because you want great ideas on something as complex as policy. You are speaking to groups of disabled people and you're getting that information. You're speaking to the education department. You have to collect it from everywhere in order to create something good. And if you're going to put that to a minister, you want people, please tell me where the weaknesses are and you don't agree so I can improve the way that I think.
So interesting. I was doing some work several years ago with an Olympic rower called Mark Hunter. And Mark talked about when he was in the lightweight pairs with his rowing partner, Zach Purchase. And every conversation was about the vote going faster. And if I see that you haven't had enough sleep, if I see that you're not eating what you should, if I see that you're not training with the intensity that I know that you had, whatever it is, I am not critiquing you.
Yeah.
It's about the whole process we need to go through to win. And I love that separation. It's exactly what you're talking about there. You've got to separate the idea from the individual. All we're doing is interrogating the idea.
I love that. I love that for so many reasons. One, you create that culture and that permission. It is expected here to do it. It's another way of doing it. It's just saying, it's your job, Tim, to be the challenger. Come up with all the challenges. Giving it to you to be devil's advocate. I used to get the group together because I had that sense that some people thought things and then they didn't want to say them as they get promoted. There are all these dynamics going on around that table. And I just say, imagine there's an elephant on the table. And so imagine there's an elephant here. What do you see, Tim? You see the trunk. I see the leg. We want to see the whole elephant. So let's all share what we see.
So on that, tell me about teaspoons.
Tell you about teaspoons. From big scale conceptual to teaspoons. It's a much more down-to-earth example, isn't it, of innovation and listening. So we talked about getting ideas out around a table. What do you do when not everyone is around that table? And really, we know that people on the front line, they are the ones who really know what's going on, and to do anything well, it has to work for them, and we have to use their intelligence. And I came out of COVID and was asked by Professor Colin Lindsay at Strathclyde University to be part of a study, and they were looking for businesses with great people practices and great financial performance to learn lessons and help other businesses bounce back. He ran some interviews in the company, and what we found out was that the people in Hawksmoor who were the kind of army of micro innovators were the ones who felt that they had permission again to make changes, and they were the ones who said, my manager listened, my manager gives me feedback. But in the service sector, like most innovation is people just making small changes to how they organise themselves and their jobs to enjoy them a bit more and to be a bit more efficient. And how do you do that? You unlock that in your culture. So he talked about this thing, job crafting, just ask people, give them permission. And in the big listening surveys, when I first ran them, I was thinking, people are going to ask for more benefits and all these expensive things. And actually they didn't. It was things like, we haven't got enough teaspoons. Because it makes their job better, because it's stressful being in a busy service and you're searching for teaspoons. It makes customer experience better because it's probably faster, and it's therefore it's more efficient and it's better for profit.
As you evolved Hawksmoor, you came to that point of international expansion. And so you're taking a very successful, multiple award-winning, high employee engagement, very high customer satisfaction, great reputation business, and then moving to an incredibly different, challenging market. What did you learn from that process?
I learned so much. And this is where that Simon Sinek model comes in really helpful. And it's where I really started focusing on this, because what I learned is that your whats do not translate. So if your what is, it's not your computer, it's your benefit policy or your career ladder, all of these carefully constructed things, they do not translate. What does translate is your why. We want to create something really special. And actually for me, that why really helped someone at Hawksmoor evolve, because what is special for customers, for the people in the teams, that changes over time. And people really get that. It's that attachment to a very strong culture. How do you build evolution in? So we're about creating something special. The why stays the same. It guides you whether you are expanding or moving into a new market or whatever. I'd always come back to that. What does this mean now? And what does this mean here? And then the hows, I shared some values with you. Personality, development, support, work hard and be nice to people. What I learned is they don't translate either because they're not clear enough. So work hard and be nice to people. I could say that to you, joined me. You have a sense of what that means. If I say personality, it's hard to know what it means. And there's a brilliant book called The Culture Map. I love it. And such a great book. And she kind of decodes the cultural differences that influence what good looks like in 8 factors of management. So there'll be things we feedback, how you make decisions, how you collaborate, that sort of stuff, how you communicate. And the spoiler alert is there is no good. We are so shaped by our social, cultural and regulatory environment. And often we can't see it till we go somewhere else. It was so helpful for me to read in there was this concept of low and high context cultures. So a culture like, she uses the example of Japan, where there's a very strong shared history and people even have the term reading the air. You just kind of know what's being said without it being said. It's not direct. Britain, we're closer to that. Our families are quite close to that. We often talk through codes. And also it made me realise, it was something very helpful from the US that helped me with the UK, that when you have a very strong culture built on 150 people who are all together, that can be very low context culture. But when you are welcoming more people into your culture and you don't go into another country and drop Hawksmoor UK in there, you have to create Hawksmoor US. When you do that, you have to welcome more people in. You have to have the tools so that people can have those useful conversations. So I did some work with another coach, Georgina Graham. We spoke to people in the business to work out what do these things really mean? What are the actionable statements? So as an example, personality became welcoming everyone. I love that. It's so core to what Hawksmoor does, both for customers, both for teams. And we have a data point on it that we track.
Well, it's real sense, as you've described that journey, of strong principles loosely held.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's that sense of, it's not your business. It's not the founder's business. It's not the management team's business. It's our business. And there has to be that agency and autonomy at each position within it so that people can do what they can see needs to be done in that moment.
I really like that. I think that was the advantage for me actually coming from a different sector. Because I didn't think that I knew, right? I didn't think that I knew what a good job in a kitchen was or what a good waiting job was or what managers should be doing, what the decision should be. It was all about listening and drawing that out of the business.
It's time to wrap up. We've been on quite a journey there. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
I'd love to leave the audience with the sense that, one, culture is really important for people, bigger than the job. The research shows that people in decent jobs have better health outcomes and live longer. They show up better when they come home to their families than if they're in an environment where someone shouts at them. So they're really, really important. There are new communities. Some of the, people spend more time at work than with many other people in their lives. They really matter. And also culture's crucial for our businesses. So there is a McKinsey study that shows that companies in the top quartile for culture outperform those in the bottom quartile by a whopping 200% on financial metrics. But actually, when I looked into that, it was organizational health. And for me, it was bringing together that analytic and that empathic approach. And when I looked at the McKinsey areas, it is things like leadership, and developing people. It is that softer stuff, but it's also clear ownership and accountability. And I know we've kind of danced around these areas, but for me, just having a very clear framework, these are the areas that matter. It's brand, people, financials. For us, it would be B Corp and purpose, because that's what makes a good business in the short term and the long run. Who owns each bit? What are we doing? And then what's that environment for making sure we are creating exceptional ideas, using everybody's talents and growing with intention and impact in a way that's really meaningful for us.
Ceri, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tim. I've really enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Please follow Powered by People, podcast from Three Hills on people-powered business transformation on LinkedIn or wherever you access your podcasts. Join us next time for more inspirational insight from people leaders who craft people-first approaches that enhance revenue, profitability, and long-term value creation. I will see you next time for more Powered by People.